The National Health Service, a source of national pride, a supposed pillar of care and compassion. But behind the familiar facade, a darkness festers, a culture of bullying, intimidation and calculated cover-ups. This is the story of Dr. Susan Gilby, a dedicated and highly respected CEO who dared to challenge the powerful and was brutally punished for it. This is the story of how a group of senior figures at the Countess of Chester NHS Foundation Trust conspired to destroy a whistleblower's career. This is the story of the Countess of Chester coup. Dr. Susan Gilby arrived at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2019 as CEO. She was a medical professional with an exemplary record, stepping into a role that was already fraught with immense challenges. The trust was in crisis, reeling from the ongoing investigation into Lucy Letby, a neonatal nurse accused of multiple infant murders, an investigation known internally as Operation Hummingbird. Concerns about Letby had been raised by whistleblowing paediatricians before Dr. Gilby's appointment, placing her in an incredibly difficult position from day one. Dr. Gilby was tasked with managing the police liaison, supporting distressed staff and attempting to restore public confidence, all while ensuring patient safety remained paramount. Little did she know, the greatest threat to her career and potentially to the truth would come from within the Trust's own leadership. The arrival of Ian Haythornthwaite as chair of the Trust in September 2021 marked the beginning of a dark chapter. Almost immediately, reports surfaced of his unacceptable behaviour. Staff described his bad moods, his tendency to publicly berate junior employees, and his generally demanding and intimidating demeanour. As CEO, Dr. Gilby was directly in Haythornthwaite's firing line. He undermined her decisions, challenged her authority, and fostered a climate of fear within the organisation. The situation escalated dramatically in July 2022. During a meeting intended to address their strained relationship, Haythornthwaite erupted in rage. Witnesses described him repeatedly slamming his fist on the table and brandishing a confidential document in a menacing way. He flatly refused any suggestion of mediation. His behaviour was not that of a responsible leader, it was the conduct of an unchecked bully. Haythornthwaite, however, was not a lone wolf. He was the figurehead of a cabal, a group of senior figures who secretly plotted to remove Dr. Gilby. This conspiracy was known as Project Countess. The key players in this shadowy operation were Ken Gill, the deputy chair. Gill was the architect of much of the strategy against Dr. Gilby. He manipulated investigations, controlled the narrative and ultimately ensured her ousting. Ros Fallon, the senior independent director, initially seemed sympathetic to Dr. Gilby's concerns, but ultimately betrayed her trust. She became a crucial part of Project Countess, delivering the devastating blow that effectively ended Dr. Gilby's career at the Trust. Nicola Price, the executive director of People and Organisational Development, was the enabler, using her HR expertise to weaponize the Trust's internal processes against Dr. Gilby. She drafted the suspension letter, blocked access to vital information, and actively participated in the cover-up. Project Countess was a chilling demonstration of how power can be abused within the NHS. These individuals used every tool at their disposal, including the very systems designed to protect staff and promote ethical conduct. The Trust's HR department, under Nicola Price's direction, became an instrument of oppression. Price drafted a suspension letter riddled with vague and unsubstantiated allegations of gross misconduct. She then ensured that Dr. Gilby was denied access to her emails and crucial documents, a blatant attempt to prevent her from mounting any defence. Even more shockingly, the Freedom to Speak Up FTSU process, intended to be a safe haven for whistleblowers, was twisted and used against Dr. Gilby. The trust falsely claimed she had mishandled FTSU concerns related to Haythornthwaite's behaviour, using this fabricated accusation as a pretext for her suspension. FTSU, meant to protect, became a weapon of attack. In December 2022, Dr. Gilby was suspended. The charges were manufactured, the evidence was flimsy, and the entire process was a carefully orchestrated charade. The subsequent investigations were equally farcical. Gill, despite being deeply implicated in the plot against Dr. Gilby, appointed himself as commissioning manager, a conflict of interest so blatant it beggars belief. The investigation into Dr. Gilby's own complaints was deliberately stalled and eventually abandoned. Meanwhile, the investigation against her, based on spurious allegations, was pursued with aggressive zeal, despite lacking any credible foundation. Gill then instructed Ibex Gale to stop their investigation. Dr. Gilby, facing a relentless campaign of bullying, harassment and character assassination, was left with no option but to resign. She took the trust to an employment tribunal. And punish the innocent. The suspension was unlawful. But the responsibility for this scandal extends beyond the core Project Countess team. The tribunal judgment reveals a wider circle of complicity, a network of individuals who either actively participated in the wrongdoing or passively allowed it to happen. Mick Geimer, a non-executive director who, according to the judgment, led a robust and arguably aggressive line of questioning against Dr. Gilby regarding the trust's finances, and later stated that he believed she should be changed. Other non-executive directors of the tribunal criticised the NEDs as a group for their failure to provide adequate oversight and challenge to the actions of the chair and executive team. Some actively participated in criticising Dr. Gilby, while others remained silent, effectively condoning the abuse. Hilda Williams, acting CEO, Paul Edwards, Director of Corporate Affairs, Simon Bond, Associate NED. Governors including Peter Fulwell failed to act. And hovering over this entire scandal is the dark shadow of the Lucy Letby case, Operation Hummingbird. While the tribunal did not re-examine the Letby investigation, the timing and circumstances of Dr. Gilby's ousting raised profoundly disturbing questions. Was Dr. Gilby silenced because she knew too much? Did the Trust's leadership use the Letby case as a convenient smokescreen to remove a CEO who challenged their authority and threatened their control? What else were they covering up? What actually happened? With serious doubts now emerging about the safety of the Letby conviction itself, these questions demand urgent answers. The Countess of Chester scandal is a wake-up call, a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked power and the corrosive effects of a toxic culture within the NHS. This cannot be dismissed as an isolated incident or the actions of a few rogue individuals. It reveals a systemic failure of governance, accountability, and ethical leadership. This case demands nothing less than a full, independent, judge-led public inquiry. We need to know the whole truth about what happened at the Countess of Chester. We need to ensure that those responsible are held accountable. And, most importantly, we need to create a system where whistleblowers are protected, not persecuted, and where patient safety is always the paramount concern. The NHS belongs to the public, to the patients, and to the dedicated staff who work tirelessly to provide care. It's time to reclaim it from the bullies, the liars, and the cowards who have betrayed its values. We demand justice.